Hey guys, just a quick video on SEO for architects. I'm going to go through some slides and you're going to learn a little bit about what's important and what isn't for SEO for your architecture firm. So I'm going to do it in reverse order in terms of what has the most impact for small practices who are doing their own SEO. Everything that's in this video is important in one way or another. Google is all about a combination of lots of different factors that help you to improve your ranking, but these are the areas that I would pay increasingly more attention as we go along so that you get the most bang for your buck. So let's start things off. The very first thing, and the probably least impactful, but let's discuss it anyway. Fix your on-page SEO. What the hell is on-page SEO? Every SEO person tells you need to fix your on-page SEO. They're going to help you with that. Okay, let's talk about it really basically. It's things like your headlines, your image alt tags, what's in your paragraphs, the HTML coding of your website. So there's some things that you're going to change, which would be, how your website is structured, your navigation, the sort of hierarchy of pages on your site, how they link to each other, what the experience is like on your website, how easy is it to use, all those kinds of things. Then there's things you don't need to worry about, like the coding, that your web provider, your website host like Squarespace or WordPress is going to take care of a lot of that for you. But there are some basic things that you can change and keep an eye on with your site. So what I would recommend for a beginner who's going to look into some of these things themselves is a tool called Content King. There are lots of tools like this that you can plug in your website and it will start to give you pointers on things that you might need to improve. It'll say things like, this page doesn't have a description, or this page is missing a headline, or these 5 pages all have the same headline. Those kinds of things can be helpful little pointers to give you an idea of things that you might be able to improve. But in general, Google is getting smarter and smarter and smarter at understanding websites and where to place them in the rankings without worrying about how many times is the word architect on your website. These things are becoming less and less important. And every time somebody asks Google, hey, is it really important that something like this is in my headline? Google basically respond, not so much. We're on top of it. Our systems understand your website in a way that isn't just about tweaking these small things, but it can be helpful. And if you are focused on page, a tool like Content King can help you out there. It can make a difference, right? So in certain specific examples, particularly if your architecture firm has a more specific niche focus than just architecture broadly. So let's say you're Breathe Architecture and you're really well known for sustainable architecture. Previously, Breathe didn't have sustainable architects prominently in the description or headline of their website, and they weren't ranking for Sustainable Architects Melbourne, Sustainable Architecture Melbourne, or anything like that. And that's not good because really they are considered an industry leader for sustainable architecture. So rightfully, they should kind of be at the top of those rankings. But with a quick change, changing their headlines, changing their descriptions, they quickly went to the very first ranking position in the search results for anything Sustainable Architecture Melbourne or Victoria. And I think they might even be the top rank for Sustainable Architects Australia. I'm not too sure about that, but look, helpful to, if you're focusing on a niche or a specialty, to make sure that you have pages that make sense for the search queries that you're more interested in targeting that are more specific than just architecture. Okay, the next step is speed up your website. This is massively important. Architects have very, very, very slow websites because they have lots and lots of very big, poorly optimized images. We also use Squarespace a lot. Squarespace is pretty slow, and it all adds up to a situation where your website can take 10, 15 seconds to load. Now, a tool that you should use to check out how quickly Google considers your page is to go to a thing called Page Speed Insights by Google. And Page Speed Insights gives you a measurement out of 100 of how fast Google considers your website to be. And I'm going to show you Maynard Architects here because they score a measly 7 out of 100. You can see that it's 8.6 seconds, might be a little tough in this video, but 8.6 seconds before you see anything, the contentful paint, and time to interactive, 12.9 seconds. So look, it's a slow website on mobile. It's not so bad on desktop, but I'm just going to flex on Maynard Architects here by showing my desktop ranking for my Vanity Projects blog, 96 out of 100, right? I had to work really hard to get first contentful paint to 0.3 seconds, right? So this is really, really fast. It's a little unfair for me to compare desktop to mobile in this case. I'm kind of, making it easy on myself here. But look, there are lots of things that you can do to improve the speed of a website. Starting with your images is key. Moving to a faster website host is also important. Look, seriously, Squarespace is pretty slow. It's why I left that platform. But if you're hosting your own website, trying to work with somebody who maybe offers more expensive hosting but is quicker to resolve. But the next thing that you can do is use a content delivery network like Cloudflare. Now, Cloudflare will have instructions for you to set it up. It's free. They do have paid plans, but I just use the free plan, and they automatically apply a bunch of optimizations to your website to make it faster. They also host a copy of your website and they deliver that to your visitors instead. So basically, rather than having to connect to your server, which can take a long time, when your visitor visits your website, Cloudflare will send them the website much more quickly, fully optimized. So that can cut your time down by quite a lot. They've got good instructions on how to set up Cloudflare. When you start the process, it's just changing a couple of settings in your website where you purchased your domain from. So if you used GoDaddy or wherever else, you just change a couple of settings and it automatically switches Cloudflare on once you've created an account, and your website will load significantly faster. And not just significantly faster for your local area, but all over the world. Their servers are all over the world, so your website will be a lot faster if Google's reading it from North America or somewhere else. So Cloudflare, really, really good tool to make your website much faster. The next step to focus on is to build EAT. EAT stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. And there's several ways you can build this. This is basically how trustworthy are you. It's becoming increasingly important for Google to try and understand who are the actual leaders in the industry, who are the experts that people rely on as reputable sources of information and reputable businesses. And so they're very, very focused on what is the reputation of your practice. And that's obviously not saying that you can change on your website, aside from a couple of things that I'll mention, but it's about how are you published? How present are you on social media? Have you built an audience? How long has your business been around for? What sort of awards and recognition are you getting? Are you on the Institute's website as a registered architecture practice? There's so many factors that come into play. But this is something that a firm will naturally develop over time, but I'm going to show you ways that you can try and improve your expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. So the first is have transparent people and contact information on your site. So we expect, this is from Google's Radar guidelines, we expect websites to have information about who is responsible for the website and who is behind the business, as well as contact information. So have transparent information, names, people, pictures, contact info, all those kinds of details help on your website to establish reputation. The next thing is the reputation of a website should be judged on what expert opinions have to say. So this is the Institute of Architects, architecture publications, awards programs, these things that you may look at. You may look at, well, why would we get published on Arc Daily? It reaches 95% of the planet. We're just looking for clients in Collingwood. The answer is that by getting published on Arc Daily, in addition to all the other benefits, Google will actually see that as a citation and a signal that you're a more trustworthy business. And the more you get published, the more reputable and trustworthy your reputation will be online. And it will help you to improve the authority of your website, and which will make it a lot easier for you to rank for different things. So getting published is, I think, really a key thing to point out here. The other thing that's not mentioned so much, but is to be associated with universities. Universities are considered some of the highest authority, institutions on the internet. And your involvement with a university, whether that's just being mentioned for being involved in some program or contributing to an exhibition or doing something, being more involved with academia, and the university institutions can also be very helpful for your reputation. I would also add to that as well, building your personal brand and not just the name of your firm. So being more active in your industry will help you to be seen as an expert with a solid reputation by Google. Really, really important. But getting published is, I think, available and within reach of almost every architecture firm who's publishing their work. A tool that you can use to do that, I've mentioned it plenty of times, and I'm sure Nick and Ben will jump in and love this mention, but Bowerbird. I love to plug Bowerbird because it's a tool that does make it simpler for architects to get published broadly at large online publications. It's easy enough for an architect to just email, the editor of Design Milk or the editor of Yellow Trace and call it a day. But if you really want to scale your pitching about your project to, 50, 60 global publications all over the world, the most popular ones that have the highest domain authority, you're probably going to need a tool to save you time doing that. So Bowerbird can be helpful for that. In return for this plug, I just want them to remove architects don't advertise, they get published on their website. It's not true. Architects do advertise and they get good results from that. I help them with it. So guys, please change that. You're hurting me. Okay, and then the final step, write articles. Okay, so architects always have a misconception about what SEO is there for. We always feel like it's about getting higher for very, very high traffic, high intent search queries like Melbourne architect, Sydney architect, best architect in Sydney. The reality is that in all likelihood, you don't deserve to be on the front page of that website because, the biggest architects around are on that page. The most highest reputation, most prolific architects are on that page. If your firm is really not as established as them, if Google's doing its job properly, it should not be putting you on the first page. Like, let's just be real about that. Google's about returning results that reflect reality. And as much as we might not like that reality, the reality is, unless we are sort of considered the top 10 firms in your city, you really should not be on that first page. Like, that's just my kind of tough love opinion about it. But that doesn't mean that we should just give up the game and not try and rank for anything. For every one person searching Melbourne architect, there's 100 people searching some peripheral topic around architecture with various levels of intent to use your services. And in fact, the further away you get from the intent, in aggregate, the more demand there is. It's just about you to try and, turn a small percentage of those readers into potential leads, right? So I'll show you exactly what I mean. Let's look at this selection of topics. So these are the ones that we all dream about. Architect Melbourne, Fitzroy Architecture Firm, Best Sydney Architects. Very high intent, but very high competition. You're competing with Cox Architecture, Woods Bagot, Andrew Maynard, William Smart, Koichi Takada. Like, you are trying to really crush some competition up in here that you're just not going to beat. They have bigger and better reputations than you. So you're not going to outrank them for these queries. But let's look at the slightly less intent, slightly less competition queries that architects usually reach for when it comes to copywriting and writing blog posts. How to hire an architect? How much do architecture charge? I've thrown in this one. Should I fire my architect and get a new one? Okay, so these are topics and common search queries that exhibit a lot of intent. How to hire an architect is a high intent page. The reality is, though, that you're not the first person to realize that these are popular search queries, and queries like them are popular. So there's going to be a lot of articles that already exist around this, and it's going to be challenging for you to outrank them in many cases, but not impossible. And it is possible to find questions here that there is a scarcity of answers for online, and that is absolutely a byproduct of something that you can achieve through a bit of research and using your imagination to think of what are things that people could be searching for, and have a look around and see, is there a local example from a local firm if it's a topic that's related to our area. So what I mean by that is there might be a question about, say, architecture construction costs or high-end home construction costs, right? There may not have been a Sydney architect that had written about that topic and you're in Sydney, but there might be a really high-ranking article written by somebody in America. If you come along and write an article to that question because it's relevant to your local area, there is a higher chance that you could rank for that because Google's going to say, well, this topic deserves to... It really should be a local expert providing advice on a local situation in a local context to a local Google searcher. So you have ways to kind of improve your rankings in your local area, but sometimes these topics are just they're just already done. They're already competed over. But I'm going to look after this slide. I'm going to look at an example that you can kind of check out and see, what the breakdown is of some of these topics. Finally, we've got this last kind of section, which is low intent, low competition. These are things where the people searching are not looking to hire an architect right now. I say intent because right now they're not, but maybe over the long term they are. And in aggregate, there may be quite a lot of demand there that you can make it work with some of these lower intent topics. The truth is that they're very low competition. So there's a very good chance that you can rank in the top 1, 2, 3 positions for these things. So I've just picked some made up examples here. Architecture history of Collingwood, Sydney construction cost per square meter, why do architects all wear black, is Passive House more expensive? These are things that are much more kind of curiosity, answering questions. There's not a lot of people searching for these, but an article on one of these topics can add up to quite a lot of traffic on a month-to-month basis. And then if you have a strategy in place to collect people's emails, send them content to educate them, send them your projects, send them what you're doing, over time, you're improving your brand awareness with people who could hypothetically end up, commissioning an architect in your area, and that could be you. So that is a kind of more broad spread, low intent, low competition kind of content topics. Let's look at an example of a kind of high intent, high competition topic here. How much do architects charge? Okay, this is a really competitive search query because it shows a lot of business intent, right? A lot of I'm thinking of hiring an architect. So high pages are currently, they have this featured snippet. Realestate.com.au technically have the first position on the search result page, and then we can see undercoverarchitect.com, how much are architects' fees? Very good job on their part to get to the second position because they really don't have as much authority as realestate.com.au and high pages. So they've done well. So let's have a look at that article and kind of see a little bit about it. So this article, how much do architects charge? Why do they charge percentage fees? It's trying to cover multiple search queries in terms of also including discussion around percentage fees. And the article touches on a few different areas that people could be searching for. So what that would add up to is this article getting quite a wide range of keywords. The reason it's done well is because it's detailed, it's comprehensive. It has 2,500 words of text. So a lot of the how much do architects charge blog posts that are competing in the search results only have a few hundred words. This one has gone into a lot of depth, and this website has high domain authority. Amelia Lee, undercover architect, big reputation, big social media following, a lot of content, very successful website. Undercover Architect currently ranks for over 13,000 different keywords in Australia, has almost 11,000 organic monthly traffic, so that's visitors per month. So it's very successful, and you can see through this chart that over time this website is growing. Let's look at some of the topics that Amelia writes about, and you can see these are all medium and low intent. None of these are hire an architect. But most successful article in terms of visits, 2,264 a month. Architect versus draftsperson versus building designer. What's the difference? 5 tips to choosing your home's exterior color scheme. Outdoor fireplaces. Heating it up outside the home. Now, look, these are very like House-esque kind of blog topics, but she's really succeeding very well from this. Generating an absolute ton of traffic on a month-to-month basis. I work with some very, very, very well-known architects that are nowhere near 10,000 visitors a month, and I can guarantee she's doing very well in terms of project lead generation. Working with a couple of clients and getting an insight into their analytics who do have some posts that are ranking well for these kinds of queries, they are generating a lot of project leads. Often I've seen as many as 100 plus project leads a year for a small residential firm because they have 2 or 3 successful blog posts that are ranking for these types of queries that are bringing in 1,000, 2,000 visitors a month from their area. So this strategy with these kinds of posts can do really, really well. But it's about being creative and inventive and thinking of topics that people would be curious about that you could provide answers to. And I don't want to go too in depth on this, but it's just a starting point for you to think a little bit more broadly about your SEO. I want the lesson here to be that you stop focusing on just Architect Sydney and start thinking more about SEO in terms of content strategy. Start broadening out the range of ideas that you could possibly pursue in order to generate some fairly good traffic. So that's it. That's the lesson. And I think that the final lesson is be patient. You should not hire somebody who cold emails you about SEO to spend $1,000, $2,000 a month to go put spammy links to your website on forums around the internet, or to do whatever else they're doing. It's really about being patient. The things that I've mentioned here about improving the detail and transparency of information on your website, getting published, building your expertise, writing good content. picking topics that there's actual, demand for, and writing, and you showing your expertise. These are simple things that you can do over time as your reputation grows. And I think now more than ever, reputation is important. Reputation takes a long time to build, and you should really be just focusing on things that you can do to build that reputation, and Google will reward you with improved rankings. But it really comes from hard work. There's no silver bullet. There's nobody that you can pay X amount per month and as a small architecture practice and get good results out of that will last and continue to build over the long term. So just focus on these things, be patient, keep working at it, and you'll start to see your SEO improve over time. So thanks guys. If you found that video useful, if you're on YouTube right now, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you're on LinkedIn, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.